Hello everyone, and welcome to the game of World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the October Revolution, an upcoming Tier 5 Russian premium battleship. And I'm sorry that I'm not pronouncing the Russian name, but yeah, I have no idea how to properly pronounce it. So, first things first, keep in mind this is a first impressions video and not a review. Also, this ship is still in testing. All the stats you see are subject to change and may be different when the ship is released. But nevertheless, I wanted to show you this ship, and I think that was an exciting battle. Now, it's a tier 5 battle, so I'm top tier. There are, well, 2 enemy destroyers, there are 2 carriers around, and it's a domination game. So I've decided to make my way up here in the north and support our efforts at Point Charlie. We've already got the center. We don't have any ships down in the south. Unfortunately, our destroyers are heading over there instead of supporting us up here where the majority of our force is. But it's a low tier battle, so I'm not that surprised. But you probably want to hear more about this ship. This ship has 12 305mm guns with a range of 16.8 kilometers, which is quite fine for a tier 5 ship, I would say. The guns themselves perform quite nicely against targets that aren't that well armored. You will have trouble penetrating tier 6 and tier 7 battleships if they are further away. But, well, in a tier 5 game, those guns are pretty nice. The accuracy isn't that great. But you have a lot of shells. So I found myself doing quite a bit of damage usually when playing this ship. Also, to mention, the high explosives seem to be quite decent. I think you have a 33% chance to set a fire, and with 12 shells. So if you find yourselves fighting higher tier battleships, you might just want to go to high explosive if they are well angled. But here I'm top tier, and in any way you will still most of the time just go for armor piercing shells. And yeah, as a side, I found it working quite nicely. Also, this ship has some decent stack armor, which means, except in the front and the back for a... Well, there is a short spot in the front and the back where the deck armor isn't so great, but other than that you are very high explosive proof, I would say, even if they have the skill that gives them increased penetration. Other than that, this ship has a special damage control party. You can see here 5, so there is a maximum number of charges, which is an interesting concept. The cooldown of damage control party is 30 seconds for the standard one and 20 seconds for the premium one. Also, the premium one comes with 1 more charge, and I have the captain skill that gives me 1 more charge, which means you start out with 3 basically. And if you mount the premium, you have 4, and you can get an additional one for the captain skill, so I'm here up to 5. Now, if you just have the standard damage control party, 3 damage control parties per battle isn't that amazing. So you still have to be very careful when you actually use them. And so far I've been doing a decent job dodging those planes. Now, low tier carriers can only drop automatically, which means gives me an easier time dodging. And well, there is a Karlsruhe here, and unfortunately my shells aren't doing all that much. Now I'm trying to get behind this island in case of torpedoes. I really don't want to get hit in torpedoes. Now, since I have a ship very close to me, probably a good time to talk about secondaries. The secondaries fire very slowly, and I have, I think, a 4 kilometer base range. So yeah, the secondaries aren't very good. They aren't doing an awful lot in my experience. And hey, there is an enemy battleship slowing down quite a bit. And unfortunately not too many hits, so yeah. Low tier battleship accuracy just isn't all that great. Back to the damage control. As I said, despite the low cooldown, since you have a maximum of 5 charges, and yeah, if worst case scenario and there are 3 charges, you still want to consider only using it when you have 2 or more fires. But the best thing about it is you are somewhat, I guess, accident proof or bad luck proof if you want. So if you have 2 fires and you use a damage control party and afterwards you get set on fire again, you can use it again. So I think the charge mechanic mainly helps against bad luck, or it helps against, let's say, a carrier who just strikes you with his dive bomber, sets you on fire, you bait your damage control and then manages to get a flooding with his torpedo planes. In this ship, this is not a problem, because you will have a damage control ready soon again. It's just it can't happen too often because of the maximum number of charges, and that's an interesting concept, I assume. Now, so far in my testing, the 5 charges have been enough, but as I said, I haven't played this ship that often to form a proper statistic. Also, I mean, not everyone will have 5 charges, and if you run around with 3, yeah, I think that's not enough. It might be an interesting idea to just add 1 more charge or something, but yeah, this certainly needs testing, and this ship is currently in testing, so we will see what Wargaming decides. Now, since I'm here under air attack, or just have been, the anti-air of this ship is nothing to write songs about, but it does have some anti-air. It will get you the occasional plane kills, and I think the anti-air rating is something of that, like a Congo. So yeah. And I got my 5th plane kill. Now, this battle itself isn't looking all that amazing right now. We are just losing our only point we have here. I'm reluctant to push into Point Charlie without more support, because once you are in there, you just can get shot at from too many. I mean, if you push in too far, just sitting here around this island opens you up for ambush from a destroyer. I mean, I don't know where the enemy destroyer is. It's probably capped in the center right now. And so I'm also a bit reluctant going into the center. What we really would need is a destroyer here in the front, taking a capture point that we could support, so that the ships can sit a little bit safer just behind the capture point, have a destroyer spotting enemy destroyers and doing the capture. But, well, our destroyer is here down in the south, and let's hope he can get Point Alpha. Meanwhile, I will now go towards the center. I suspect the enemy destroyer will leave once he has captured, so I guess it's a good place as any. There is, if I don't push here in too far, this island should provide cover against quite a few enemies. And hey, maybe I can get some nice hits at the Kuma in front of me. I'll have to be careful here. If a destroyer ambushes me, I'm pretty screwed. Now, the ship handles decently, I guess, when it comes to turning. It's certainly not as sluggish as the US battleships. So there is that, but I really don't wanna dance with a destroyer here. Also, the secondaries, as I said, they have just a very large reload, which means they aren't all that good. So I can't rely on them against an destroyer ambush. But I do have a lot of main battery guns, so 1 salvo in close proximity could really hurt a destroyer. And well, the planes here are retreating, so don't worry about them. But I'm really concerned about a destroyer here launching torpedoes. Maybe an unspotted one, could be one around here. I don't... now we see the enemy destroyer, which means I'm currently safe, but the destroyer is probably now coming here to stop me. Looking direction he's heading. So what else can I tell you about this ship? Well, maybe let's talk about the concealment. The concealment of this battleship is actually quite nice. I think it's like 13.5 kilometers, something around that, the base stat, but you can get it to 11.4, I think, with Concealment Expert, which means can be somewhat sneaky with it, which is great when you find yourself in higher tier battles. Tier 5 doesn't have good matchmaking, as is no secret, which means you will often be forced to fight higher tier ships. And goodbye, Kuma. Yeah. Now, the enemy destroyer is coming this way, we just saw him. He is almost dead, which means 1 shell should be enough So the destroyer is approaching carefully and looks like he's approaching with a smoke screen. Now maybe I can, and no, he wasn't visible long enough. I'm taking some blind shots here, hoping. Now if he manages to sneak around here and get some torpedoes in, I'll have trouble. Also I can't capture this point as long as he's in here. You see, there's no capture progress. Now while I'm sitting here, the enemy doesn't get any points, but yeah, we actually need to capture stuff and we need to ship things. We are way behind. So the Isokase is taking the south here, which is amazing. Maybe the Kaiser here can somehow move into the north, and it will fall to me, I guess, for now to take the center. Can't do that with that destroyer. I don't want to push in as long as there is smoke, so I will slowly turn around. Now I will lose my progress here, but I will turn around again and probably enter point Bravo once more. And unfortunately my guns are just reloading or not fully turned that way, which means even though the destroyer was just not spotted, can't do anything about it. Now I can also get a few shells against this König right here. Now the carriers, I think are focusing on the König. There was just an airstrike. So I hope that my Kaiser will be able to deal with that, with me getting a few shots in. I really want to turn back here and get into this capture point. The enemy's points are just too scary right now. And well, it looks also like the König is flooding, which means that will hopefully go down anyway. So I should be able to get another salvo off before I move into the capture point again. By now we can also see the destroyer has retreated, and maybe our carrier can take care of the destroyer. This would be a great help for me, because I could be more safely capping here. And goodbye, König. So yeah, now I can take this point. The Kaiser will hopefully move here in the top, and well, there is not that much time left in this battle, so this might not be enough. We certainly have to sink a few more ships, and exactly, a carrier just meant to get rid of the destroyer, which is pretty nice. So I'll now move here on the other side, maybe get some shots at the Omaha. The Kaiser will probably hopefully move directly towards Point Charlie, and with that we can hopefully secure a victory. But we are still somehow fighting against the clock, considering the enemy's lead. So, is there anything else I can tell you about this ship? Well, maybe just talking about generally how I performed with it. So far, I've had some pretty nice battles. In tier 6 ships, I felt like wasn't really too bad. Tier 7 battles can be quite frustrating, especially if you have to fight other tier 7 battleships. But then again, I mean, if you are tier 5 battleship, you aren't supposed to be that effective against tier 7, I guess. As I said, high explosive can be your friend. Don't expect too much of those guns against higher tier battleships. But those guns are working pretty well against cruisers. And while the accuracy might be a bit lacking, you do have quite a large number of shells. So yeah, overall I think this ship is okay. I think it's just performing okay so far. I don't think it needs any major changes, at least in my experience. The most frustrating part can just simply be that you are not that often top tier, and that's just a tier 5 problem. Hey, only the carriers remain. I think we will speed it up here a little bit at this point. But, you know, you shouldn't design tier 5 ships that can challenge tier 7s, which means that it's just, well, I guess a matchmaker problem in a way. A tier 5 ship can face tier 6s and tier 7s, but it can't face tier 3s, it can only face tier 4s, so at tier 5 you can face 2 tiers higher but only 1 tier lower, which means, you might guess, you will more often face higher tiers than lower tiers. So yeah, it's certainly an interesting ship. I am not sure about the damage control part. I think it's a great idea with the number of charges, but I'm not sure if they shouldn't increase the number of charges, maybe at least by 1. but as I said, this is something that needs testing, and Wargaming will certainly have statistical data about this and know a lot more about this than I do. Other than that, I personally have been enjoying this ship quite a bit. As I said, even in tier 6 battles, I think I've been performing quite well. Tier 7s are a bit more frustrating. But you see, you have some nice concealment, and if you work with your concealment and play a bit more passively, if you are lower tiers, it works decently, I guess. You want to focus down destroyers, and against battleships go with high explosive. And yeah, here is the win. So here you have the results. Keep in mind, this is a test ship. A test ship cannot earn any achievements. I managed to get 1977 base experience, and it worked out quite well, I guess. I was a bit passive in this game because I didn't want to charge in without our destroyers, and our destroyers just weren't really around all that much. Maybe I should have played a bit more aggressively regardless, but it worked out quite well in the end. So I scored 119,000 points of damage in this game, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this. Overall, as I said, I think this ship is decent right now, and we shall see what Wargaming decides to do with it. Keep in mind, this is a test ship, this is a work in progress, and there might be further changes. Keep also in mind, this is more a first impressions video and not a full review. And yeah, let's see what Wargaming does with this ship. I think it will turn out to be a fun one, and I'll see you guys next time.